I often tell my teams the only constant is constant change. Business
Oh,
is living and organic and growing, then it's constantly changing and evolving. And so making sure people are comfortable with the idea of it's constantly changing, which means that, if you're reporting to this person today, you might not be tomorrow. Because if we're evolving as an organization and we're growing, then that means we're probably changing. And change is uncomfortable, as we know, for a lot of people, but it is the only constant in life. We're constantly
mhm.
changing and growing. And so business is organic and they're evolving, and we have to make sure that we are thinking about things every day in a new way, because what got us here won't get us there.
Welcome back to the Takeover. If you're looking for strategies on how to grow fast, get big budget clients, and outlast your competition, you're going to love today's guest because owns the oldest privately held company in Atlanta. Not only that, she is one of the fastest growing female agency owners in Atlanta, and her clients range the gamut and have big names like Coca-Cola, Intercontinental Hotels, and Ferrari. So the reason why I'm excited to bring her is because, we've talked before the show, and I think you're going to get a lot of valuable, actionable takeaways from today's episode. So welcome to the show, Amanda Lucey.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, first off, tell me just a little bit about that story. It's so intriguing. The oldest privately held company in Atlanta, marketing company in Atlanta. Give us a story behind that.
So I started my own business a little over 13 years ago, and we continue to scale and escalate our growth. And that became a lot of fun, building teams and growing a business. And so, in an effort to continue to grow, we actually acquired the partnership. And it's been almost 7 years now. And I actually knew the founder, David Arnold, when I was client side. The partnership was one of my agency partners. And so we were at lunch one day. We started having a conversation. He said he was going to sell his business. And I said, I'd like to buy it. And here we are. It's been a really fun ride, and buying a business larger than your own company, there's a lot of learnings there. So it was an interesting adventure. But we have grown and we've moved offices and we've expanded to other states, and it's been a really fun journey.
I know because when I was talking to you yesterday, you were in Florida. Now you're at your office in Atlanta. How many locations are you at?
So we have two office locations. We have one in Atlanta and one in Naples, Florida. And then we have staff all over the East Coast. We have employees in Pennsylvania and Ohio and other states as well.
That's all. Well, let me ask you this because we had a guest on a while ago, and she said normal businesses, about 40% of businesses are owned by females, and I think, don't quote me on the stats, but I think it's something like 3% of agencies are owned by females. So I always love meeting somebody that is willing to completely go against what everybody else is doing. What made you want to get into, and everybody listening, we're going to dive into the nitty gritty of how she's growing and scaling, but I'm really interested. What made you want to get into the agency world?
So it's fun because I actually have done a lot of different things. I've worked for the British Embassy, I've worked for national government politics, I've worked for nonprofits. So I've done a lot of things in my career, but I never worked in an agency. And I worked with a lot of agencies when I was client side. And one of the challenges I felt with some agency partners was that, it felt more like billable hours. It felt as if they were always trying to upsell and perhaps sometimes even, constantly telling me what they thought that we needed. And whenever the board or the CEO would be telling me, no, this is what we should really have. And so I love the idea of a consultancy approach and really having an agency that was more of an anti-agency. So when I first started my company, we were more of a consultancy, and I didn't
Hmm.
really aspire to be an agency owner at that time. I wanted to bring creative and communication solutions for business challenges. That was the goal. And over time, obviously, we've evolved to a really large agency in the Southeast and continue to grow. But it's the idea that we can collaborate and come up with solutions to business
Hmm.
challenges that really gets me excited. And I think that today you find a lot of agencies doing that, but 15, 20 years ago, it was very different, and the Mad Men days of advertising are very old and antiquated, and things have shifted. And so our consultancy approach, our name is just not, what we put on our business cards. The partnership is truly how we operate. We work
Hmm.
alongside our partners and collaborate. Our kickoff meetings with our partners, we call our clients partners. For example, their discovery sessions. We dive in and really identify what the business challenges are and how we can come up with creative and communication solutions for them. So it's a lot of fun, but that wasn't my original intent, was to become an agency owner. It's happened over time. It's been an evolution.
Wow. So many, a lot of it, you were seeing kind of the way that how agencies are run, the way you didn't like the way that it was run. And you thought, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this.
That's right.
And by the way, with the Mad Men, I don't know how the heck they were drinking all day. Because I mean, like, it'll be Saturday, and if it's a brunch and I do a drink during like the lunchtime, I'm like taking a nap. So I don't know how those guys did all the cigarettes and all the whiskey. So I'm glad that you're not doing that. What I am curious about, because I mean, when you build a company, there's a lot of dynamics. There's getting the clients, there's fulfilling on the clients, there's building the team around it. And I know you're writing a book that also touches a lot on crisis management. So growth brings kind of micro crises. I'm really curious, you having not only the experience growing a bigger agency, but also having an expertise in crisis management and all these different components. What is your mindset around growth?
I appreciate you said mindset, because I think growth is all about mindset and having the right mindset and making sure that the leaders you have in place are also empowered to have the right mindset, because
Hmm.
it's important. We chat and joke a lot at our organization about either you're green and growing or you're ripe and rotting. And it's true. You're either moving forward and growing or you're not.
Yes.
And in business, you have to constantly be growing. And there's some intention that's required around that. And so having a team that has the right mindset and is focused on what your strategy is, but also understanding when you need to pivot that strategy. We all learned that during COVID, how important it is to pivot. And it's absolutely critical. It's a big part of the book as well. And thinking about issues in crisis management, the ability to pivot and having pathways to pivot and
Mm.
pathways to ensure that you can pivot effectively as well.
That's so interesting. I'm doing this research on like what were the most successful army leaders of human history. And one of the common themes between all of the most successful armies in human history was the was speed and the ability to pivot, essentially, the ability to adapt to new situations. And so it's interesting you say that, because that's a similar theme to anybody that is whether an army or a business is able to grow fast, is that ability to work and make changes with speed, but also have adaptability. So you're saying really getting your leadership, not just yourself, but your leadership, making sure they're in the right mindset so that the organization is able to pivot and to move fast.
That's right. And making sure that everyone understands, what the score is. What are we doing and why? The why is so important. If people can really get behind a mission and a vision of organization and what the strategy is if they know why and where we're going. So we have quarterly staff meetings, and everyone in our organization understands, not just what our values are of our organization, but also what is our strategy, where are we headed, what kinds of work are we wanting to do, and
Mm.
what kinds of partners do we want to have in our portfolio, and just making sure that there's transparency there so everyone understands the why, they have the right mindset, and then they can really help us march forward towards our goals.
And how do you get the leadership team bought into the vision, right? Because as leaders, like John Maxwell talks about, we're able to see things that maybe the team doesn't see yet, and our job is to kind of get people bought into the vision and moving the vision. When you're setting new vision, you're moving the vision. How do you get the leadership team and then the whole company on board with where you're wanting to go?
It's interesting, as an entrepreneur, I think that's one of the most important things and also one of the hardest things to accomplish. And over the years, I've certainly failed at that at times, where I didn't really take the time to pause and communicate the vision or communicate where we were headed and why. And we now do that in the interview process when we're vetting
Mm.
candidates, when we're looking for new hires, talking about where we're going in an organization, why, what kinds of work we're doing, the types of values we have as an organization, and what we're looking to accomplish. We start that in the interview process, because if your values don't align with the people you're bringing on your team, especially in a leadership role, it's just not going to be successful. So
Yeah.
that's something that we do now, even when we're vetting candidates and when we're interviewing people to come and join our team.
Step one, make sure that there's clear culture and that the people you're hiring, especially the leaders, are aligned with that culture. And then now when you're setting out and casting vision, that vision is always aligned with what the culture already is or the values already are.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it starts with, communicating the values. You can't over communicate your values. So we talk about in our organization, our values being purpose, passion, and partnership. We do a lot of purpose driven work. We do a lot of work in healthcare. We're doing a lot of work in the economic development space. We do a lot of work with nonprofits. And so that's something that having purpose in our work is really important to us. We talk a lot about passion. We don't hire anybody who's not passionate. We're in this business because we love what we do and it's important. And then partnership, we've talked a little bit about how we operate and how we work, but we talk about that in the interview process. We communicate that throughout onboarding and also when our team is here. And we just added a fourth P, progress, that we always want to have
Ah,
forward and progress. So we've created an AI committee in our business to make sure that we're integrating AI into what we're doing, that we're
yes.
evolving. I think you talk about pivoting, technology is constantly making us think about what's next and how we continue to integrate and come up with more efficient ways to work and utilize new technologies into our processes as well.
And the funny thing is that the fourth value you created there was the value in and of itself,
That's
because you're
right.
progressing. So no, it's interesting. One of our really important values is innovate to dominate. So it is constantly and I love what you were saying before. Essentially, if you're not growing, you're dying. If you look at anything and grass is either growing or dying, leaves are either growing or like there's nothing that stays buoyant. Everything is moving one way or another. And so I love that because there's so much happening right now with AI, with the trends that is incredible. I mean, for our company, we do really high scale lead generation, appointment setting, and there's obviously a lot shifting in the marketing space just all around. And if you stay on front of that, it really gives you leverage and it gives you big opportunities. But if you I don't know if it's going to pan out. AI is going to change everything, and you either change with it and you reap the benefits, or you will get left behind, as it were. So I love that you're doing that. I'd love to shift into a little bit more sales and marketing. Let's talk about where do you go when you go out and you're getting clients? Are you mostly developing it from, getting referrals from your current clients, growing current accounts? Do you have strategies that you've used to go out and get new accounts, or how do you think around sales and marketing and really growing your revenues?
So when you first become an entrepreneur, a lot of it becomes word of mouth. And you kind of utilize the network you have, but obviously that's not sustainable growth long term. And so
Yeah.
we were fortunate that we have been very successful in the campaigns and the work that we've done, and we've had a lot of referrals, and that obviously is very helpful. But sometimes you have to ask for referrals. And so working with our account managers, working with our team to ask, are you happy with the work we've done? And people are saying yes. Can you give us a testimonial? Can you send us a referral? And you'd be surprised by just asking how many people will refer you and share their success and our success together with others so that we can make sure we're telling that story. It's kind of that old adage that cobbler's children doesn't have shoes. It's tough to market yourself sometimes when you're a small business and take the time to build those case studies, to tell your story and to really promote the work that you're doing. But we have done a better job the past 2 years of building a team that
Mm.
celebrates the successes. And when our partners are winning, we're winning. And so telling those stories collaboratively, making sure that we're submitting for more awards, that we're stopping to build the case studies and more real time. 2 years ago, we started having a more thoughtful, strategic approach of building a team that was going to focus on sharing our partner success stories, which are, of course, our success stories. And we have a strategy to make sure that we are building out case studies, that we're working on our lead gen, that we're having weekly pipeline meetings, and we're having more conversations on how we're going to promote our partner success, which is, of course, our success, so that we can generate, a healthier pipeline. That has
Mm.
been very successful, but that's not something that happens overnight. Having a thoughtful sales strategy and making sure that you're taking a moment to celebrate your wins and sharing those stories takes time, and it takes some thought as well.
And when you say sharing wins, because I mean, the accounts you're getting, that you're not doing small projects. Like, these are bigger projects. I mean, what's your normal sales cycle when you're bringing on a new client?
It really varies. It's tough to say normal, but we've had partners where, we started the sales cycle and it took 6 months. It's taken a year sometimes. So sometimes it can be a really long process.
And I think that's what's really important. If you are selling mid-market, if you are selling enterprises, you've got to find the wins along the journey, right? There has to be, you have to know what are the wins of, hey, we've got, this many people in this stage of the pipeline, because just creating the wins when you bring a client on, and when you have this longer sales cycle, can be a little bit like not feel like you're progressing. So when you say celebrating the wins, when you're walking through, when you're thinking about growing the company and bringing people into your pipeline and expanding your partners, what are some of those wins for you that you look at?
Well, obviously, the first thing, and especially with creatives, they love winning awards. So it's always helpful to win awards. But I would say that the wins are when our partner has seen return on investment, when they've had growth, whether it's revenue growth, or they're trying to potentially get people to sign up for something, whatever the call to action is, and they've actually seen success. That's celebrating a win where we've had KPIs in place. We've had some goals in place and we've achieved those. That's a win. We oftentimes just move from one thing to a next, especially as a small business, and there's no shortage of work. So we're constantly, moving to the next
Sure.
project and the next initiative. But I think it's important internally for our culture for us to celebrate the wins, but it's also important to celebrate those wins with your clients, with your partners, and taking a moment to show the success and the work we've done together. I've worked in a lot of businesses where there is a investor component where you're obviously needing to kind of talk about what the ROI is. And sometimes
Hmm.
agencies don't always do that. And so I think it's important for us to approach this from a business perspective that we're looking at the ROI and we're actually trying to make sure we can really evaluate what that is. And now we have so many tools to measure that it really helps us tell a better story of how we're adding impact to their business.
Yeah, which is probably kind of leads into the next question I have, is about retention. When you think about fulfillment and retention, it sounds to me like you're very, very data driven, where there has to be numbers, there has to be goal, KPI outcomes. How, when you think about fulfillment and retention, what are those key components, maybe on the deliverability side and on the client experience side? What have you used to really retain and upsell clients over? I mean, they have the oldest privately held marketing agency in Atlanta, so you've probably figured out how to really retain and keep clients long term. What does that look like?
And not only have we kept them long term, but sometimes things are projects and people come back, so it's really wonderful. We just recently announced that we are the AOR for the State Roll and Toll Authority in the state of Georgia on Peach Pass. Well, we were the
Hmm.
original agency that created the logo and did all the branding for Peach Pass. And now all these years later, decades later, they're coming back to us and we're now their AOR. So when you build meaningful relationships and you solve business challenges and you're a true partner, people return. It's so
Yeah.
important. People are always focused on the front door. They're focused on new business, and how do we get new leads and how do we get new clients and new people in the front door. But it's equally important to focus on the back door. Who's leaving? Why are they leaving?
Hmm.
Are they going to come back through the front door again? And that's a really important part of organic growth. It's not just about new business, it's about making sure that we're growing the business that we have and ideating. A big part of our job as marketers is to make sure we're ideating and we're bringing new ideas, and sometimes ideas they didn't ask for. But if you understand your partner's business, then you're really thinking about it all the time and you're ideating and bringing them new
Hmm.
ideas and helping them make their job easier. Our job is to make our partners' jobs easier. And if we're doing that effectively, they're going to want to keep working with us. So, it's fun when you're actually thinking about all the businesses that you work with, and their business challenges and how you can help them make their life better. And I think that's just a fun job to be in.
I mean, so it's like if you're making their job easier, you're bringing new ideas. I know for our companies, we don't just bring ideas about our area, but if we see other areas that we have ideas on, we'll share that with him. Now you have somebody that is like, okay, you're making my job easier. You're bringing new ideas. You're pointing out things maybe I wouldn't have noticed before. Those are some of the key components for retention, you're saying?
I think that's important. It's interesting thinking about making our jobs easier. A few years ago, you mentioned that we're really data driven, and we are. A few years ago, we were thinking about how much time we're investing in pulling analytics and pulling reports and, looking at the Google Analytics, looking at SEO, looking at SEM, looking at everything we're doing from a paid, organic, earned,
Mm.
all of it, right? And we were spending a lot of time and a lot of dashboards and aggregating all of this and putting together PowerPoints. So we said, if we're going to spend all this time, why don't we develop a product? And we did. And it's called Partnership 360. And this dashboard brings in hundreds of its API integrations to show you all of your data in one dashboard, and it's customizable so that brands can log in and they can see where they stand at any given moment during a campaign. And so, it's thinking sometimes about how we can work smarter and not harder and do it
Mm.
on behalf of our partners. And so absolutely, I think that's a key component to retention is when we talk about always on marketing, always be thinking about your partners and how you can support and help them and ask them questions. Be curious about their business because then you can be better informed on how you can actually help them and bring solutions.
That's powerful. It makes me think of the concept behind Netflix, how they charge a subscription. They currently have enough video content in their database, I think, to watch shows for the next 50 years. So why is it that they're constantly putting out new stuff? It's because when people are paying a retainer, when they're paying an ongoing fee, they want to see new value. And it sounds like you're creating just a constant. So when they think of the partnership and Amanda's team, it seems like there is constant new value. And as your company's innovating, we actually are launching a new software that solves this similar problems for our clients. It's like as the client, they're paying you every month. They're not just seeing the old things they paid for, but they're also seeing, oh, Amanda and her team, they're updating, they're moving, they're innovating, they're bringing new ideas constantly. And I think that's really powerful. It's the same reason why, like I was saying, the platform Netflix, they got to constantly keep putting stuff out, even though they have for $10 a month or whatever, you have 50 years worth of content. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of value there when you think about, okay, because originally you said, I didn't like that these agencies, which kept just being about the upsell, how can I get more money out of you? So you've done things differently, but you're also one of the fastest growing agencies in Atlanta. How do you think about upselling that client? Like, when does that conversation happen? Do they just love you so much that they go, here's more money, or is there a conversation? How do you strategically grow an account over however many years?
So one of the key components to our culture is staying curious. And you've heard the tagline, stay thirsty, my friends. Well, stay curious, my friends, right? Stay
Yeah.
curious. So this culture of curiosity and being curious and asking questions, it has to continue. From the very beginning, when you first start talking to a new lead, you ask lots of questions about their business. Why are they interested in talking to a marketing and PR agency? What are their pain points? You're asking lots of questions. The questions can't stop. To constantly be asking questions throughout the entire relationship, because that's what gives you the insights to come up with ideation, come up with new ideas, come up with opportunities for organic growth and
Mm.
sell. You have to sell an idea, don't you? You have to sell a solution. You have to sell a product. You have to sell something. And in our situation, we do have a product that we're selling, but we also are selling our services. And so we can't sell services unless we have at the very, very foundation a core relationship and we're staying curious about the business and how their business is evolving. What is their strategy? What are their goals? What are their pain points? And oftentimes we do that in the very beginning of a relationship. It's like dating, isn't it? You ask
Mm.
people all these questions about themselves. Do you stay curious about the people that you're interested in your life,
Mm.
right? If you
Yeah.
stay curious and you keep asking questions, it never gets boring. It's always interesting. You're always learning something new. So we really try to instill a culture of curiosity with our team, and that extends to the relationships and the partners we have, and then to the business that we have, so that we're constantly growing,
But what
right?
are some of those main challenges that you face that if Amanda, you could look back at your old self and say, hey, I would have done this differently, or I would have made this little tweak. What are some of those like key things that come to your mind?
It's all about the people. The people are the foundation of the work. And, we're all human beings, so none of us are perfect. And I think that oftentimes we get really busy being busy. And so, the people, making sure that you have the right people, that they have the right resources, that they have the right onboarding and the training and all those things is so
Mm.
critical. We've made so many mistakes like most entrepreneurs over the years and learned a ton, and you learn by doing. And so I think having grace and continuing to give and understanding that there has to be a component of grace in what we do. and just being authentic. And when you are making mistakes and you have made errors, being honest about that. Some,
Mm,
we're so afraid to be vulnerable, especially as leaders, as business owners. And I think the authenticity is what people are craving now more than ever.
yeah.
So, I've made lots of mistakes. I think that when you acquire a company, there are lots of key learnings. I mean, that could be a whole podcast in itself, but integrating and merging teams, making sure you have the right structure. I think oftentimes we think what worked a year ago is going to work today or is going to work in 6 months. And if we're green
Wow.
and growing, that's just not the case. So we have to
Mm,
constantly be evaluating our processes, our staffing structure. Do we have the right people in the right positions? And I often tell my teams the only constant is constant change.
yes.
Business
Oh,
is living and organic and growing, then it's constantly changing and evolving. And so making sure people are comfortable with the idea of it's constantly changing, which means that, if you're reporting to this person today, you might not be tomorrow. Because if we're evolving as an organization and we're growing, then that means we're probably changing. And change is uncomfortable, as we know, for a lot of people, but it is the only constant in life. We're constantly
mm.
changing and growing. And so business is organic and they're evolving, and we have to make sure that we are thinking about things every day in a new way, because what got us here won't get us there.
Wow. And it's so funny because like we're going through one of those times where we're looking at, well, everything that we spent, you got to be willing to take things that you've spent lots of time, money, and energy to build that worked for you last year and let go of that emotional connection you have with those things and say, hey, this is no longer serving us. We've got to rebuild it, restructure it. But again, it's the most successful armies of human history and the most successful companies there are in the world have speed and adaptability. And I think that's one constant thing I keep hearing from you, Amanda, is the ability for you to be adaptable, for you to be creative, for you to think strategically, for you to bring fresh ideas to your company, to bring fresh vision to the team, to bring fresh ideas to the clients. I mean, if you hear this over and over again, everybody listening, I think that's one thing that sticks out to me a lot is your ability to create a company and a culture that does that, that is able to do that and is able to pivot and is able to adjust and use the word being curious about the client. And I think that is the one thing that will, if you know that the only thing for certain is uncertainty, right? Is this thing's going to change. If it sounds like you built a whole company culture and model around just that reality.
And as entrepreneurs, we're really great at being comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Entrepreneurs
Yes.
are the ultimate risk takers, but our teams might not be. And so we can't expect they're going to be comfortable with constant change. It makes people uncomfortable at times. And so I talk a little bit about how can you tell stories? We're storytellers, right? That we're in the business of storytelling. How can we tell stories to connect with our team to make them understand what that's like? And so I often tell stories about my daughter. She's almost 8 at this point. And I remember early on when she was little thinking, okay, just when I thought I had it figured out, now she's in a new phase, right? Now she's eating a food that she didn't eat before, or now she's crawling, and now she's walking, and now she's changing. And then her teeth are falling out. And now this is happening. Kids are constantly growing and evolving and changing, aren't they? And we're trying to
Yeah.
keep up. And so a lot of people can relate to that. They have a niece, a nephew, a sibling, they're a parent themselves. I've been on a weight loss journey and I've lost over 100 pounds in 6 years. And I often tell that story and that journey and how, it's a constant evolution. And anyone who's ever been on any kind of journey like that can relate. So anytime as leaders, we can tell stories and connect with our teams because they can't identify and understand what it's like to be an entrepreneur. There's a reason that there's very few people who do that, right? And start business
Mm,
and grow businesses. It's a very small percentage of the population. So one of the key learnings and probably one of the mistakes I made early on, you talked about things that, I should have done differently, is assuming people understood me, right? And my mindset and the way I do things. And you can't assume that people get it because they don't, right? And that's the
yes.
beauty of it, is that it takes all different personality types and all different types of people to make this work. Something else that we do that I think makes us different especially for our size, is that anyone who comes onto our team, we do personality assessments. So
Mm.
currently we're using the DISC assessment, but we're looking at a couple of different assessments to potentially integrate into our onboarding. And then we talk about it at staff meetings and how we're all very different and our work styles are different, and embracing that again to make sure that we're kind of coming together as a team and understanding our differences actually make us stronger.
That it's so true. And I think about, because we used to have a nice size office in Miami. Then when COVID hit, we went remote. We stayed remote, and we're very KPI driven, very organized, very everybody knows what's their task, what's the outcome, what's the KPI metrics, successful or unsuccessful. They get bonuses of successful. And what we found is creating that kind of autonomy really attracts the right kind of talent, and really being able to create like that kind of environment where you understand, some people they're more productive when they're doing their flow work in the morning. Some are more productive in the afternoon, and understanding those different personalities and creating a culture where you can like make sure that people are, focusing on their best talents and focusing like on their, even like for us, we're really big on when's their best biology, when is their best energy for the day, and giving them the flexibility to choose that allows you to attract a diverse pool of personalities that can come together unified, which creates a really, really, really unique strategies and ideas, especially if you stay curious. Whereas like you're saying early on, I was like, why can't everybody see the way things
Yeah.
that I see things? And I would try to hire people the way that I saw things, and we would have the same problems over and over again because we didn't have those different perspectives. And I think that's just so powerful. Do you talk about this at all in your book? What are some of the main things you talk about in your book? Because I really want to make sure we get a plug in for that, because I think people are going to really love to hear more from you.
Thank you. So the book, I co-authored the book with the CEO of Naples Comprehensive Health, which is a hospital healthcare system in Southwest Florida, Naples, Florida. And the book is a case study. It speaks to the upheaval that we endured at that brand, but also everything we went through during COVID. So it starts with the journey of 5 years ago when we first started working with this partner, and they were having an upheaval and really a crisis situation with their administration, which really was a lot of turmoil in the community. And it is a very specific book and case study to healthcare and how healthcare has changed forever coming out of COVID. But there are lots of great nuggets of information on how to rebrand during challenging times, the do's and don'ts of rebranding, issues in crisis management, words to use, words to lose, toolkits on communications, best practices. And so we're the storytellers. There's dozens of stories in this book, which are very inspiring, and the frontline workers who were the heroes during this pandemic, which truly, really a testament to their amazing courage and everything they went through. But Paul Hiltz, who is the co-author and the CEO of NCH, he speaks to how to build teams, the leadership, how we rebuilt
Mm,
their C-suite during COVID. So not only are we facing this uncertainty with this pandemic, but rebuilding an entire leadership team in a C-suite at a huge healthcare system, while we were also rebranding. And how do you do that? So
yeah.
that's what the book's about. And there's lots of great leadership lessons, and there's lots of great communications and brand strategy lessons. And it's called Upheaval. It's on order on pre-sale for Amazon, but also you can just go to amandalucy.com for more information.
Awesome. And I think why people should read this too is because it's like, I think COVID was a wake up that, oh, we're kind of in times that can shift really fast. But we're gonna see AI shift things like that. And then we're gonna see that the tools that we don't know exist, that AI is gonna help us build, that completely change the game again. In my mind as a sales and marketing guy is like when you start having AI that's running Zoom calls and you don't know if it's an AI bot you're talking to on Zoom, or like there's a lot of, and all the things we're not thinking of. That is where we're gonna be talking about branding, crisis management. How do you change your leadership structure? So I think there's like, if you're dealing with some leadership shifts, if you're dealing with any kind of crisis in your business, definitely get the book. But I also think it's going to be a good book for you to read if you're like just right now, because an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of prescription, right? So, you know, if you are dealing with something now, uh, check out the book. And if you're not dealing with something right now, Amanda, you and I both know you're going to deal with something at one point or another. It's just a matter of time. So get that book. Amanda, this has been really, really awesome to have you on the show. And yeah, it's great to have you. And one last question, is there a way that people can best connect with you? Is there like LinkedIn? Are you on Instagram? Where's your best social media?
LinkedIn, but amandalucy.com is my website, and you can connect with me there too. And I look forward to hearing from some of your listeners. And thank you so much for your time today. This has been fun. Thank you.